Mad props to Victory Mbala for the amazing DJ set. Thank you for being here for this special version of our DJs and discussions, our first for EMEA, our first for Africa. These conversations allow us to hang out, talk about Netflix, the world, and creativity in a relaxed atmosphere. The center of Netflix is the story. We all know that storytelling has been deeply rooted in the souls of folks all over the world. For many of us, these stories are what complete our histories or connect us to the world from where we are, where we have been, where we're going, and in many ways allow us to be heard and seen. A good story captivates, invigorates, entertains, and can at times push us to act. Words cannot explain my excitement to host a panel of extraordinary storytellers that have captivated us with their art and desire to expose the world to their experiences. My name is Michael Jennings. I am on the Netflix inclusion team based in Los Gatos, California, and I will be facilitating our discussion today. Please give a virtual welcome to Nasipo Dumisa Ingwashe, co-founder of Gambit Films, director and writer of Nomir 37 and the Netflix hit Blood and Water. Dorothy Gatuba, award-winning Kenyan film producer and manager of African original series for Netflix. And Mo Abudu, new grandmother, media entrepreneur, movie and TV producer, trailblazer, innovator, and CEO and founder of Ebony Life, which partnered with Netflix on a multi-title deal that includes Olature, which will be released on October 2nd. Thank you for joining us. Before we get started, we have pre-selected several of your questions that you submitted. If you didn't submit a question, you will have a chance to submit your question in the chat today. We will select a few questions from the chat to ask our guests. So let's get started. I have a question for each one of you. Each one of you has been on a tremendous journey to get to where you are today. Could you tell us what inspired and motivated you to create and tell the world stories? Dorothy, let's start with you.
Really, you want to start with me? You don't want to start with our guests first, you know, our non-Netflixers to tell us what inspires them because they're the true storytellers. Now I pivot this and jump to my wonderful creatives. Nasipo maybe can start and then Mo, then I can jump in last.
What is this?
I know, the power of delegation.
I mean, didn't even answer the question at all. Hello, everybody. Hi, Michael. Okay, so what inspired me to tell stories? I don't know. I think I was just born to do it. I was doing it since I was a kid. I wouldn't play with toys. The toys we got, we kind of would break as kids, and we would. I find myself, it's funny, I was talking about shoes earlier, right? But we would get these shoes and we would name them and make them characters. And we told stories over years with these shoes being characters, and my mom would get upset because they were all over the room all the time. So I think I've always told stories. What is interesting though for me is that I had no idea what it is that I was doing. I only learned the vocabulary, like the words that, oh, I'm directing, I'm writing, I'm producing when I was actually in film school as an almost adult. So that just came down to access and opportunity and different things falling in place to actually place me in film school.
Awesome, thank you. Mo, how about you?
Over to me, Dorothy. Okay, she's throwing me under the bus. Okay. Well, it's nice to see everyone. Michael, hi. Nasipo, hi. Dorothy, hi. And to all our beautiful guests, it's wonderful to be here today. Right, well, for me, in terms of storytelling, it goes back to being brought up in England. I was born in England, schooled in England, and I found myself having to answer the most ridiculous questions about who I was for the better part of my earlier life. And, you know, I didn't do anything about it at the time. And you go through the motion of schooling and uni and marrying and having babies and kids and working. And then I woke up at age 40 and said to myself, I'm done. I really need to start telling these stories because it was in my gut to do it but I was actually scared to break out of what I was doing. I mean, I was head of human resources at an oil and gas company, one of the largest in the world. I had a fantastic job, and you sort of leave that. And I got into consulting, and then from consulting, I had to now do another turn into media. And I thought people are going to think you're absolutely crazy, and which they did, by the way. But I decided to ignore all the noise and go ahead. And I started a talk show. And for me, the talk show was the beginning of telling that story, of being able to engage and provide a platform through which the world could understand who we were. Because for the longest time, as I keep saying it, we are so silent about our stories. No one knows who we are, which is why the world jumps to conclusions which are incorrect about who we are. So that's kind of how I got in. I had to really find courage to do a career change, because I had no media experience whatsoever, zero. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
So
Dorothy,
Michael,
so you get to answer this question.
I get to answer it. And then the next
question.
Oh my goodness. Alrighty. So I'll say this, it's actually quite interesting. I just wanted the world to see my awesome creatives, number one, to hear them speak firsthand. But it's also very interesting what they've said, because my answer is actually a combination of both. One is just being born somewhat of a natural storyteller. I think talkative was the word people used to describe me, but it's just the whole idea of telling stories, whether one-on-one, whether in a group, whether on stage, in whichever shape or form. I think folks who attended high school with me can attest to that storytelling was something that has been a deep part of me. I think the challenge has been that it's really not looked at as something that you can make a career out of, at least back home in Kenya, and I know in other parts of Africa. So I think one of it was the idea that this was something that came naturally to me in whatever form, whether it was in speaking, written, performing. This is something that came naturally to me. But also, like what Mo said, is when I had an opportunity to go and study overseas, then I did encounter quite ridiculous comments and conversations. And I think it occurred to me, at first it used to upset me, because I would be like, how can you really ask me if I came here by boat, really? But then it also, the underlying note was folks actually don't know. And if you see many countries, many places where their stories are in the media, people have a very clear understanding of the United States or the United Kingdom or China or Russia or whatever, because we see a lot of stuff in media. And like Mo said, we had been silent for a very long time. So like I said, for me, it is this desire to actually just fulfill this, which is, I believe, my purpose. Telling African stories and letting the world know that we have exciting stories that can also be watched. So that's really my motivation.
I think it's amazing, because those stories from Africa are what connects me, to the continent. And I think it's unbelievable to hear the stories. So thank you all for that. Dorothy, you're up. Another question for you.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you delegate. Sometimes you get to speak longer.
Hey.
Dorothy, what impact do you see African content having in the global community, and how will it affect cultural values, especially now that Black Lives Matter has a global audience?
You see, I think the word culture itself is a very ambiguous term, but I think we all understand the context in which you're asking it. I think if we just look at the Black Lives Matter movement as itself, the first thing is that Africa's geographical space, like I said, as opposed to the culture, is in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement, because this is something we have experienced before. This is the thing. We have experienced this before. We have gone through systemic racism, notorious policing of culture. This is something that we have gone through. And the thing is that people really haven't known what we have gone through, because like Mo said, our stories, our history has been by and large very, very silent, or silenced, or we've not had the opportunity, or the stories that we tell have mostly stayed within our borders. So I find this an exciting time, and especially with Netflix, at least a service that is in 190 countries, 193 million subscribers, it means that we can tell our stories, we can put them on a service, and they can go to everybody across the world, and people can know about us, and they can learn even perhaps from us and what it is we've gone through and what we have overcome. So for me, I feel that for the first time in a very significant and a very real way, our voice as Africans and our storytelling as Africans will be heard and it will resound. And this is just for us the beginning. So I think it's an important thing for the culture and for the world in general.
How can Netflix enable that and make sure that the right stories are being told?
I think Netflix has to take a cue from our storytellers. We cannot purport to know everything. We must learn. We must be humble about it. We must be able to ask, please teach us, tell us, show us, because we don't know. I think that in the past, many organizations have come in with a very extractive way of doing things. So we are going to take away from Africa, from Africans, from the Africa culture. We are going to appropriate, we are going to take away. And I think what can make us different is we can invest in the continent, in storytellers, because we can be the vehicle that actually makes creativity financially viable, which is something that that actually excites me very much. And it's one of the reasons why I jumped to be part of this journey with this rocket ship, as I call Netflix. So I think if we have a humble attitude and we come with a spirit of curiosity and asking for guidance and letting Africans tell their own stories and not necessarily using them as little vessels so that we can tell whatever story we want, but honoring them and their craft and their time and their abilities, I think we stand to win. But I think that is possibly the approach that we can take and we can succeed with.
Awesome, thank you. Mo, I had the privilege of watching Olature yesterday on preview, because you know, as Netflix folks, we get to see it in advance. I thought it was an amazing piece. It'll be released on October 2nd. You know, it illustrates the intricacies and brutal nature of human trafficking. Could you tell us a little more about the project and the type of awareness and change that you hope will occur as a result of the film?
Yes, thank you, Michael. I mean, our journey into filmmaking, as you know, started in, you may not know, but it started in 2014. We set up Ebony Life Television in 2013 and started Ebony Life Films in 2014. And we started with a film called 50, which was basically about the lives of these four incredible women that were going through some sort of midlife crisis in Lagos, Nigeria. Again, it is on Netflix for you to watch. And for us, really, and for me, my passion is about finding stories that have very much a female focus, because I think there's so much underrepresentation of us already. I say that we suffer sometimes, 3 sets of discrimination. As an African woman, the fact is I'm a woman. There's already discrimination against me. Number 2, I am a Black woman. That's another set of discrimination. And the third set is that I'm an African woman. So I'm dealing with these 3 sets of discrimination at any point in time. And if anyone is going to change that narrative or tell those stories, I believe it rests with us. So even though over the years we've done a lot of, very sort of lighthearted comedy, there's always still a message in that. But I felt that as we grow Ebony Life across the globe, as we develop our stories, we have 4 key genres that we've selected for storytelling. And one is Afro history, that looks at the incredible amount of history that we have as a continent. The second is Afrofuturism, which deals with Africa in the future. The entire world is bought into sci-fi. What's going to happen to African sci-fi? Again, it's a journey we would like to be a part of. And we actually do have a co-pro with AMC on a major, global production. Third is Afropolitan. It's looking at my reality today as an African woman. I mean, often those stories aren't told on a global scale, but it's important for the world to reflect and see who I am and what my challenges and my aspirations and my dreams are as an everyday African woman. And fourth is Afro Impact, which is the genre that Olature fits into. And it's looking at those societal issues that we have in the continent. As much as we want to showcase the greatness of our continent, we also have to delve in and look at the plight and the challenge that we have. We can't sugarcoat the challenges. And human trafficking is a major, major challenge. 150 billion is the global amount made annually from human trafficking. 100 billion of that is generated from commercial sexual exploitation. 50 billion is from forced economic exploitation. Of the 40 million people trafficked every year, 71% of those are actually women. So the majority of people that are suffering from this plight, from this challenge, are our women. And guess how many cases, prosecutions, 11,840 were recorded in 2018. So as much as we want to make content that is, entertaining, we also have to think about content that has a message, that has an agenda, that obviously the world needs to realize that it's a global plight. And that's what we've done with a story like Olutore. It's to expose this so that people can see the challenges and can see the dangers that surround, an issue like human trafficking. But as you said, I'm glad you watched it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It is entertaining. There are actually a lot of funny moments in it as well, but there's also a very serious message that we're trying to get across to anyone in the world that tries to get involved in this, horrible trade.
It's powerful. I will use that as the descriptor.
I
think there was a lot of twists and turns, some things that I thought would go another way, but actually went one way. So I encourage you all to spend some time and watch it on October 2nd. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Nsifo, Blood and Water has been a tremendous hit across the world. The twists and turns, highs and lows, deception and search for truth. Can you tell us the origin of the story and what inspired you to create the series?
Yes. Sorry, I'm just still reeling from everything Mo and Dorothy said. I think they're just such inspirational women. I think there was so many poignant. I wish I had my notebook to just write down a few things, because those statistics also just blew me away. Especially because Blood and Water actually touches on trafficking as well. And having said that, the origin of the story, as a company, Gambit Films, we had just completed our debut feature film, Number 7 Dadaf, which is the number 37, which was my first feature film. And we were starting to think about this kind of stories we wanted to tell next. What we really love is we love genre, and that's our strength. I personally love it more when it's genre and you're able to shed light on a societal issue or talk about something through a genre that still entertains and still allows to kind of, beyond just pure sugar, that there's a little bit of the medicine or some vegetables in there. So we were talking and speaking around ideas, and one of the statistics we read at the time was that every 5 hours in South Africa, a child goes missing, which is insane. And thinking about how many families that would impact, that every 5 hours, there is a mother, there's a father, there is a brother, there's a sister, there's a grandmother that has to suddenly deal with the fact that a child that they had in their lives is now gone. And what that story looks like. So then we started kind of thinking around what the different versions of that story could be. And one of the original ideas, the original idea we pitched actually to Netflix, was far more centered around this family dealing with it and looking at it as this core mystery. But as it grew and we realized, as we grew with this concept, we realized the opportunity to also be able to impact the story beyond just telling a story of trauma, but also being able to tell a story of a girl who has made a decision to change her circumstances, to not kind of wait for other people to decide things for her. Buleng has such great agency, and so she is so active in her own destiny at every turn, whether it's for her own good or not. And we thought that was such a great moment to be able to tell a story of a powerful young girl, and not just a woman who's lived life or a family dealing with trauma, but rather a family living through and past and making through their trauma, and what that would look like. Also because, I felt and we felt, and I think everyone's touched on it, I will contradict slightly and say, I don't feel that as African storytellers, we've necessarily been silenced. I think that it's more that we haven't really necessarily always told our stories or had the opportunity to tell our stories to the world. When you create, for example, Making Number 37, we made that film knowing that we wanted it to reach the world, but you have to make deals after the fact and try and sell it. In this case, once Netflix had approached us and we were pitching this, we knew that the world would have access. Now, whether everyone watched it or not was a different story, but we knew that they would have access. So we felt a responsibility to be able to paint a new and different picture of what it is to be African, what it is to be South African. I think often our stories are incredibly political, which is fine because that's also a part of our life. But this was an opportunity to say, beyond the trauma, beyond the suffering, beyond the story of our history, there is a current, present, young generation who are alive and wanting to change their lives, but also also they have normal problems that young adults have, problems that are about love and coming of age and frustration with their parents. And I think we don't often see those stories told from an African perspective. And so for us, this was an opportunity to take it beyond just dealing with the scars and wounds of what it is to live in Africa, or to be African, but to also deal with just being human in Africa, and see the different versions of that. So yeah, that was really the origin of the idea.
It's so much power in being able to see the story of African women on the screen, because we haven't traditionally, I think, in my household, haven't seen that, right? And so being able to see those stories has been incredible. And I think that's really this great part about having Netflix broadcast these stories. My question is for all of you with this one. Where do you see African storytelling in 5 years? What voids need to be addressed to get there? Mo, let's start.
Dorothy's making notes.
You want,
I think she's got answers.
You want to delegate to Dorothy? Dorothy?
Yeah, she was making notes. I think she's got answers.
Mo, okay, they want me to go first.
Go ahead, Mo.
5 years from now, the thing is that the process of telling a story, a good story, does take time.
Yes.
And I think if there's anything that we do need to learn on the continent, it's that we can't wake up and have an idea today and produce it tomorrow, especially if you want it to have global appeal. Now, Nosifo, you said earlier that you didn't agree with me saying we've been silent. What I meant by the fact that we've been silent is that we've been talking to ourselves for a very long time, but we haven't been talking to the world. So the world doesn't know my reality and they don't know your reality. Yeah. And the only way they're going to know our realities is by us sharing our stories with them, that they are going to understand, that have the same production value, that have the same story arcs in terms of how we develop our stories and how we produce them and how we present them and how we also package them. Because a lot of the time, I mean, we see all these international movies, and at times I'm watching and I'm thinking, what was that I just saw? That cost you $30 million or $40 million? I could have made that for way cheaper. But you know what? It's about how they've decided to package those stories, build up their stars, market their stars, make everything look bigger than life, which they're very good at doing. So we need to learn all these tricks of the trade. But to go back to, Michael, your question of 5 years, to get a series on air or a film on air from beginning to end, in terms of the story development alone, is at least 12 to 18 months, right? Now, before you cast, before you produce, before you edit, before you music, before you do everything else, if you're going to do it properly to international standards, you're really talking 2 years. So 5 years from now, magic can't suddenly happen and we've suddenly taken over the world. No, it's not going to be that we've taken over the world in 5 years. But what I'm happy about is that the journey has started. We've seen season 1 of Queen Sono. We've seen season 1 of Blood and Water. We're going to see season 1 of Babaseki very soon, and all the other projects that are also in the pipeline. So we're going to begin that journey. but we're going into a space where we are dealing with hundreds of other countries that are also dealing with making hundreds of productions every year. So what I'm happy about, and I said this in my interview with The Hollywood Reporter, is that Netflix had the vision, had the foresight to come to Africa and engage with people like Dorothy and say, we're going to put you at the forefront of developing originals, which most of the others have not done. They've simply lumped Africa with Asia, and they make the odd phone call to you producers, say, oh yes, we're like, we'll keep talking to you, and you're talking for months and months and nothing ever happens. Sometimes, thank God, now it is beginning to happen. I can say that as Ebony Life, we've seen the change. We have incredible partnerships across the world now, but it's taking a minute. But Netflix are the only ones on ground, really, with executives that are dealing with just Africa. So how are we going to take over the world? But, I mean, Dorothy, maybe you, please, I know you're a superwoman.
Hardly. I'm hardly a superwoman, but sorry, go ahead, Mo. Sorry, I interrupted you.
So I don't know. So 5 years from now, we would have shifted, but I don't think we should expect miracles in 5 years. That's my take.
I think 5 years from now, we'll have more stories, more African stories being told than we currently have. So that's very encouraging. That is certainly the intention of Netflix. That is certainly the intention of the African team here at Netflix. Both the originals team and the unscripted and the docs and the doc series, everybody, because it's an entire team that is looking after that. So I'm encouraged because I think 5 years from now, we will have more stories about Africa that Africans will be able to watch and understand and learn more. Because you see, we also sometimes say Africa and we lump everybody in one group, but with Blood and Water, we learned a little bit about Cape Town. With Oluture, we learn a little bit more about Nigeria, and so on and so forth. So I think as Africans, we'll be able to learn a lot about each other and our countries, and we will, hopefully it can even bring us closer than we are now. But I also think in 5 years, the world, like I said, will have more stories about Africa, more stories than they actually have now. Stories, which I want to be very specific and say, that are told from the inside out, not from the outside in. Because we have had stories that have been told about Africa from the outside in. So I'm being very specific and saying stories that are told by Africans and they're watched by the world. I think we'll have more of those in 5 years' time.
Is it my turn?
It's definitely your turn.
Yeah, I think I'm so glad Dorothy touched on this, because I think that's really been something that I've been reflecting on a lot, the idea of the stories that come out of our varied countries in Africa, because I think some of the misconceptions around our continent is that people often do lump us together, but there's also the sense that if you're African, you are the same. I think as Africans coming from different parts of the continent, we can attest to the fact that being a South African, being Nigerian, being Kenyan, being Ghanaian, being wherever, that your experience, although there may be some things that might connect, that your experience is quite different. And that it's such an important thing that for me, I don't think it's going to be miraculous and suddenly there's something huge and dramatic that has happened. But what I do think is that I would hope to see so many different kinds of stories coming out of Africa, and stories that celebrate the differences as well as what is similar about us. I think the continent, if you look at it on a map and people draw it, it seems so small. It's often made to be the same size. You fit Europe, you fit the United States, you fit it all in this continent. It's huge. We are many, and we are different, and we are glorious. And we are vicious, and we are brutal. We are all these different things. And for me, I would hope to see stories that speak about the problems that we have, the corruption issues, but also that celebrates what we are and the beauty of Ubuntu and the way we view family and in the different views on family. But then because I'm a genre freak and a genre fan, I would also hope that we see more stories that take a leap into the future and take a leap into the fantastical. and that they are done right, and that they are allowed the space to be able to compete at a world level. Because what we do know is a sci-fi and a fantasy, and they require attention beyond just the development of the story alone, but then there's also the fact that you can't just kind of, it's not a paint by numbers, okay, well, that this one, this budget for this story, whether it's a series or a film, that you just apply it to say, what we know is fantasy requires a certain kind of touch, and the budgets are different. And I look forward, because I know that storytelling is such a part of, and fantasy is such a part of my personal culture. I grew up being told stories about animals who spoke, and even in our spirituality, there's so many of these elements that I want to see all of that celebrated in how we tell stories. I think we accept small and big stories from everywhere around the world, but it's often been expected for South Africans and Africans, and that our stories should feel like they're about family, or they're about corruption, or they're about a war, or they're about racism, or they're about poverty, or they're about coming through a struggle. That I want to see action heroes. I want to see all kinds of things happening. And in fact, with Gamut Films, we've just completed our second feature film, which is an action film. And it's exciting to see African heroes and being able to tell these stories and embrace the fact that we are all these different things, and yet we're also still African. That's, for me, is what's exciting, and as different storytellers being allowed to use their voices to tell the stories they want to tell, and not the stories that anyone else is expecting them to tell.
I think, Michael, just to, I just wanted to jump in and say that one of the things that I think is important is for us to understand where we are now and where we are going. We need to understand where we've come from. And I think there's a lot of room and opportunity to tell stories about our past, because our past is beautiful. And like Nosipho said, it's glorious. And we've been through the struggle. We have overcome. We are still strong. We are still here. We have been shaped by our past. And interestingly enough, not enough historical stories, whether fiction, non-fiction, like I said, have been told. And I think there is a great opportunity there for us to be able to tell these stories, because I think if you look at stories about Africa's history and its past, I think the saying that comes to mind, and I paraphrase, is, the tale of the hunted will always be told by the hunter. That saying of the person who tells the story will actually dictate how the story goes. And like I said, for the longest while, our story is being told from the outside in. Our history has also been shaped in a different way. I always use an example. I enjoy, one of my favorite shows is The Crown. I love watching The Crown, and I believe it was in season 1 when the Queen was in Ghana and she was meeting Kwame Nkrumah. And also I think when she learned the news, when she was in Kenya and we saw all the servants saying goodbye to her as she was going. And I was curious, and I said, I would have loved to know what Kwame Nkrumah was going through. What did he prepare? What did he do? What was going on in his life before the Queen came? So I think there are different perspectives in our history stories that we have to tell. So definitely, I think the future, the present, the past, we just haven't told enough stories. So I feel there's room for everything to be told.
To build on that question, how can we empower and inspire more African men and women to tell their narratives and stories to the world? How can we truly empower and encourage and motivate?
My quick answer, and I'll answer very quickly, is first of all, I think we have to get comfortable as Africans and in Africa with creativity being something to be respected and honored. Number one. I dare say that it is the creative people who have kept us entertained and kept us sane during this COVID period. We all know in every way, shape or form that our storytellers have kept us entertained. And I think that the first thing is, I think, to accept that storytelling is an actual thing that should be respected and should be honored and should be paid for and should be developed and should be, it's something to be respected. So I think that would be a starting point with people who are parents and they have kids who are creative or they're creatively inclined, to encourage them to actually pursue that. That is, I think, one way, but I'll let Mo and Nosipho share their thoughts as well.
Yeah, I would, yeah, I would just add to that, and I'll only speak on this because I don't think that I'm some expert on how we change things and how we grow and move forward. So I can only speak from my personal experience around access. And how important that is. That is access to information, and beyond just information, oh, I have this story, I want to tell it, who do I go to? I think it's from a young age, as Dorothy's saying, along with celebrating creativity, it's also nurturing that in the same way that you nurture amazing, like people who are very academically inclined, that we nurture the idea that there are careers and different kinds of careers and within the film industry, whether it's film, whether it's television, even if going into theater, that like I said earlier at the very top of this, that I had been telling stories my whole life and had no idea what I was doing because I didn't have the vocabulary. Because for me, I had never ever seen a film set. What I knew was that TV and film was something that happened somewhere else. I grew up in a small town. It took a teacher who came outside and had been in an industry in Johannesburg coming and making it her mission to bring the industry to us, to educate us and to show us what was possible. And then also point out and call out what she saw in me and what she saw in some of my peers at school to say, I see something in you and I think you could contribute. Won't you consider this? Yes, you may be, like I was doing academically okay, I really was, but to say, but you've got this other thing and there's a calling on your life, won't you consider this? I think and I couldn't wrap my head around it until she made it her mission to take us to Johannesburg, to then educate us and bring people, and suddenly my mind opened up and I could imagine something else for myself. And I think that it's about celebrating our stories and our storytellers. The good and the bad, celebrating the failures as well, because I think the failures are just a step towards success. They're just going, okay, this doesn't work when we do it like this, but how can we improve it? And to allow for spaces for creatives to fail safely, so that we don't start to feel like we have to work in formulas that have worked for other people, but that we can work according to our own formulas and in our own way. I think that's such a big thing, because I think in trying to tell stories to the world, we also need to be able to be educated as to what it is to be a filmmaker. I remember when I started in film school, this was not that long ago, it felt like the concept of going to film school here in this country wasn't something that people understood. It was like, oh, wow, you want to do what? Why? Isn't it something that you just learn as you go? You know, and the idea that to educate yourself in the same way that you educate any other profession, to understand the history, the future, the mechanics of it, the business of it all, and understand how to create it and make it sustainable. I think for me, those are the things. It's access, it's opportunity, it's information, it's education. And it's empowering and celebrating the storytellers we have who are doing well.
Mo, your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are that, and I take everything that Dorothy and Nosipho have said, 100% spot on. But it's also about looking at the canvas of what we already have. And that canvas for me is reaching out to our incredible writers. Because what we did at Ebony Life was, I reached out to Professor Wole Soyinka, Africa's first Nobel laureate, and acquired the rights to Death and the King's Horseman, which is about our history because it's based on true life events. And this happened many years ago that I acquired the rights. And then now, in partnership with Netflix, we are doing a feature film from that work. The other one is Lola Shoneyi's, the Secret Lives of Baba Segi's Wives. Again, it's a piece of our history. It's a piece of literature, that's done so well that we're now saying, that's the first original that we're creating. So I think that we have a responsibility to look into the literature, to look into the history. Again, the Dahomey Warriors is a piece of our history, and we're working with Sony on that particular, development in terms of, a TV series. So we have so much history that we need to look back on. We have all our incredible African writers, because Africa has a lot of great writers, maybe not script writers. Maybe, of course, it's an art we need to perfect, but in terms of the real stories that are told by novelists, we have an incredible amount of those stories. And it's about how do we now take those and take them to screen, I think is a big part of our journey as we grow as storytellers. The other part of our growth, I think, is capacity building. We can't get away from the fact, as Nosifo said, film school. Yes, it is a school where you go and learn about how to make a movie, about how to produce, about how to direct, about how to do wardrobe and production design and everything else. We need to have that. Those responsible for setting curriculum need to know it's an important part of curriculum, possibly even at, primary and education, and secondary school level, that let it be something that we do, that people know can become careers. I mean, now I have parents calling me and saying, my son or my daughter would like to become a director. Can they come and intern with you? They wouldn't have done that 10 years ago. They'll be flogging them for wanting to even consider a career in that light. But because they've seen the success, because they've seen that there is a real industry, parents are now allowing, because Africa, I have to say, use the word allowing, because we know how much influence our parents have over who we become. As I said, when I decided to set up Moments with Mo, even in my 40s, I had fears about telling the world I wanted to be, because I remember telling someone, I said, you want to become a talk show? You want to become a presenter? Is that all? I thought, is that how you see it? So it's about educating also the people around us, in the wider community, to understand that this is work. It is show business. It is a business. And we need to understand the business of entertainment and film and television and all of that, yeah.
I think that's the perfect segue to this next question. How do we bridge the gap between writers and production companies?
Nosifo.
Oh, okay, Nosifo.
Oh, Mo.
No.
I'm very curious, Mo, because you have a powerful production company, so I'm very curious. How do you bridge that gap?
Between the writers and the production companies? I think that you have to appreciate them, and I can only go based on the writers. Are we talking about novelists or script writers, or?
I think it can be both. I think it can be both.
Okay, so for literature, I mean, we've had two examples, Lola, working with Lola, and working with Prof. I mean, Prof is in his 80s, and I had been talking to Prof probably when he was in his 70s. So it was a long time convincing him that I really wanted to acquire this work. But it's to show respect for the work. It's to let them know you're not going to take their work and bastardize it. It's for them to know that you're going to ensure that it's a collaborative effort. Even Dorothy can confirm that even with, Lola and The Secret Lives of Baba Segi's Wives, Lola has been a continual part of the process of engagement because she had a vision for the novel when she wrote it. So how do we take that to life? What is the adaptation of that to screen? What does that look like? So I think it's about taking a very collaborative approach. It's respecting the authors and letting them know that you really want their work to shine. And that's kind of been, my approach in getting those two pieces of IP, signed and sealed for production.
For us, there's so many different ways in which we do it. Our company is set up in that we've got internally as the founders, and when we came out, we started the company as writers and directors because we wanted to be able to decide how our films were made, instead of writing and then having to get someone to buy into it to then sell off. So we wanted to take control of it ourselves from the get-go. But as we've grown, and as we've each individually pursued different elements of being filmmakers, what we've also realized is that we want to be able to increase our capacity as a production company. So we want to be able to not just rely on just 3 people to be the ones coming up with ideas and telling the stories and writing the scripts, because as Mo said earlier, development is a really long time. You want to be able to continually be creating. And so part of what we do is we are constantly in contact with writers from Some writers contact us and find us, whether it's through film festivals that we attend, whether, you know, there's festivals, there's constant workshop sessions that can be had, and that you take meetings and you talk and you just find people that you feel have the same you know, way of thinking and the way of viewing stories. And then you begin to and at times it's about reading other people's scripts or seeing someone's work on screen and that you realize, geez, I really enjoyed that. I wonder who wrote it, and then following up and finding out who wrote this. What else do you do? What else do you have? Let's talk about the next thing. As far as IP, we are only now really entering into that space. And it's such an interesting space because as a production company, then you also have to equip yourself with, well, who is either my partner, or how do I ensure that we have a fund that allows us to secure rights. Because what we also find is that often a lot of our stories and the books that are written by our own authors are also, they are taken up like the American studios, and they will have them even before you had a chance. And honestly, me trying to compete with an American studio, they'll outbid me every time. Every time they'll outbid me. So it's also having to kind of navigate that with the book agents, with the writers, and building those relationships to then decide as well, how do we together, you know, navigate this. Having said that, I had a meeting with an American production company yesterday, and it was such an interesting thing because what they have done internally as a company is they have created a system in which they have ideas that they will create concepts and log lines and a premise, and they will go out to authors and novelists to then write the books for them, which they then publish those books to then be able to create scripts and movies and TV series from those books. And so they've created a system that works for them. And I mean, they're releasing hundreds of books a year. And that, I think that is an incredible, it's a way of thinking outside the box as to how do we all come together to be able to create and tell our stories, but not have to compete with other people, but rather create for ourselves. Does that make sense?
No, perfect sense.
I'll tell you something that when you look at the value chain for a television show, from script or from idea to it being TX'd or being put on screen, actual value is created during development. That's just the bottom line. One could actually argue that the rest of it is a garage. You know, it's like, okay, so we will produce and we will post-produce and we will color. So it's a process. It's just part of the value chain, but where value is actually created is in the development of the shows. The idea itself, it's taken, it's expounded, it's made into Bibles, and you know, it's scripted. That's where actual value is created, and that's why IP in itself is very, very important. Now, this then says to me that we need to nurture and really focus a great deal on our writers. And I hear what you're saying, Nosipho, and I think that, and I think with Mo as well, and you guys are prolific producers, and consequently you are able to speak from a point of privilege. And not everybody can be able to say, I had a meeting with an American director, I have signed with Sony and AMC. But also it's worth seeing that you guys also started from somewhere. So that is what is beautiful about your journeys. And that's why it's wonderful to have you as examples for everybody else, because you can start somewhere. You didn't even know you were directing or writing until you were told in film school, this is what you're doing. And here we are, we have you today. And one of the interesting things, and I have come to see from my experience and also sitting now on this other side of the table, is that many perhaps production houses create stories out of necessity because they need to do the work, right? But writers are more often than not individuals. These are people who have burning desires. They have stories in their hearts that they have so many of them sitting on their hard drives. And so it becomes, how do we then equip them to be able to bridge this gap, like you have said, Michael? And so, for example, with our colleague, Chris Mark, who looks after, and I think Nosipho and Mo, you're familiar with him, how can we work with his Department of Development and Investment? Because it's just not development, but also investing. And Chris is really big, huge on working with our creatives and our writers so we can build a powerful ecosystem of writers in Africa. Because if we don't, all the stories will not be told in the standards, more like Nosipho you're talking about. So I think that investing, that's one way we can bridge the gap, and that is something we're truly trying to be active about, is finding these writers and working with them, training them. Then when Nosipho and Mo are producing shows, they can be part of these writers' rooms. These are active conversations that Nosipho or Mo, when they're choosing writers, ask them. We go back and forth and we're like, have you thought about this? The other day I was suggesting to Mo, I was like, can you consider having a writer from Kenya? Can you consider having a writer from Uganda? And so on and so forth, because we have these fantastic people. So I really think that investing in the writers, because development costs money, we don't have institutions. So players like us can be able to come into the market and say, hey, we have a few dollars. Let's creating a strong ecosystem of writers. And then we keep creating opportunities for them to write for producers such as Mo and Gambit Films as well.
Awesome. We only have a few minutes left, but I do want to ask this question to each of you before we conclude. How, as young people from everywhere in the world, should we build our career to create a path and change the industry in a way that would make it more inclusive, supportive, and curious about storytelling?
Sure.
Mo, let's start with you.
Yeah, was that a question or a statement? Sorry.
It's a powerful statement.
It's a question. It's a question. So really around inclusion, you know, how can really this next generation of production storytellers position their careers in such a way that they create a more inclusive and supportive landscape?
I think it's by making sure that we have storytellers that come from everywhere. So it's really the African problem to the world, but now it's within Africa, looking at, as we've said, Africa is Africa, but a story from Nigeria is very different from a story to South Africa. So it's making sure that when a Netflix comes, which is what they do, is they want to tell stories from different parts of Africa. And from within different parts of Africa, they want to tell different types of stories So it could be about, you know, inclusion with regards to, is it about a wedding? Is it about business? Is it about something that's mystical? I mean, it's really about finding and making sure that we develop genre writers, because the thing is, you can't be everything to everyone, you know, so it's to decide, am I going to be a writer that writes about thriller? Or am I going to sort of be a writer that just writes about romance? Or am I going to write for the youth? So I think we need to find a way of ensuring that you decide on where your passion and your love is. So for example, we as Ebony Life want to play in 4 key genres, and we need to have writers that can write in those 4 key genres. And within those 4 key genres, again, you may want to look at, is it a millennial story? And I'd rather have it told from a point of view of someone that is young. So I would like a young writer to be that kind of writer that develops that. So I think that's how we as producers need to make sure we have a decent crop across the board of those that have experiences that they can share with us, so that we then have an opportunity to produce that content back to you, the viewer, that you guys will binge in half an hour, literally. You know, we spend 2 years making it, and you spend 6 to 8 hours watching it.
Right. Nosipho.
You know, that's a very big question, to be honest. And I don't know that it's all the answers are going to come from this session. So what I can say is, I think as a filmmaker, as a writer, as a storyteller, is to know yourself early on. Mo actually kind of alluded to this, but I'll just expand and say, know what it is that you're intending to do. When we started Gambit Films, we knew, even though we weren't getting the opportunity to do it at the time, we knew that we wanted to tell stories from us to the world. We always knew that. That was part of our mission statement from the get-go. And so every single thing that we did, and we almost we picked our idols early on to say, these are the filmmakers that we want to be like. They didn't sit and wait to be hired. They were constantly creating. They started their own companies to take control of what they were creating and how they formed their own identity. And we continue to do that because we have by no means reached the heights of where we want to go. And so it is about knowing early on what you do, and then every decision you make from that point being intentional. I had the choice coming out of film school of going into the service industry and working and making a real living, or starting my own company and not making a living for a really long time, but harnessing my craft and learning how to make films rather than helping other people to make their films. And I chose the other, and I was broke for many, 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 many years. I really am now only kind of not broke, right? And so in that time, and I'm not really joking, but I had to make the decision from early on that this is who I want to be. And so if I'm going to be this person, I have to make these sacrifices, but this is how they're going to pay off later. And so everything I've done from that point has been that even in making Number 37, it wasn't a kind of like, oh, let's just make a film. There was a decision in what the film would be and why it would be and who we're making for. And in knowing that we want to make a film that will get into an international festival, because once we're in the international festival, we want to get representation, international representation, that will then give us access to the entire system around the world, but specifically in Hollywood, because we want to be able to play in that league. And so we did that from a short film where we didn't know where we were going through other means. The short film competition came around, and in that competition, we decided we are going to make a proof of concept. Rather than just making a random short film, we're going to make a short film that is a proof of concept that will allow us to make a feature film that will then get us there. And that's exactly what we did. And in that film, we got to meet, and we're still continuing to meet, incredible filmmakers. I'm represented in the US, and in that we got to, Gamut Films is represented in the US, and we got to then, our film landed up with Netflix, watching it and then contacting us to say, we're coming there, we want to tell stories, we like what you guys do, what else do you have? And I think if we're trying to think about, the idea of inclusivity is great, but I think as young people, and I'm going to say, because I'm youngish, that it is our job to also think about not trying to simply be included in a system that already exists, but to decide to create our own systems, to decide to create our own paths. At the time, our paths were limited, but I look around me now in South Africa, and specifically in Cape Town, there are so many production companies, and funny enough, all of us came around the same time, and seemingly we all had the same thoughts, that we want to be able to tell bigger stories, we want to be able to reach the world, and so we made those decisions.
Awesome.
Oh, okay. That's a very interesting question. I'll say I have almost 5-6 points how they can do it. I don't know whether they can. The first one I'll say is this: be steadfast, be very steadfast and firm with your vision, but be flexible with your strategy. And I think it's Jeff Bezos who said that. Just know this is the goal, this is what I want to do, but be flexible with a strategy and how you plan to achieve that. The second thing is be ready to work, and be ready to get very many no's and even being ignored. Just be ready. This you have to understand, there are so many people out there also trying to make it. And so you have to have the tenacity, you have to have the grit to be able to just keep on going. Create. To get a great idea, you need many good ideas. This is something that you must remember. So keep on creating. Great, because like I said, a great idea comes from a good idea. Number 4 is know why you're doing this. If you don't know why, if you don't have your true north, your compass, you will give up. But if you know this is why you're doing what you're doing, this is what is going to keep you, it will keep you going through the sleepless nights and the many no's and the many times you're going to be ignored. Number 5, soldier on. And I want to say, I was looking at the panel, and David, Albert, I see you. I see you have been writing through and through. You have this great idea, and Dave, I'm going to find you, and I will connect with you, and I will hear you, because this is what the man has not stopped. And I know it is irritating, and we're not going to take questions. And so, but I will find you, David. And if it is something that we can do together, we will. If it's not, then you have to keep on creating. But guys, you must not give up. You must keep on going. And even when you pitch me and I say no, I need you to go back again and find a new idea. You must not give up. You just simply can't. Okay? That's what I can say.
Thank you all so much. This was absolutely amazing. First DJ in discussion for Mia, in particular in Africa. You all have provided so much insight and so much greatness into not only your experience, but really the future and where we're going with content from Africa. So I'm grateful to have shared the space with all this Black woman magic. I think I'll be set for the rest of the month. And just be in a great place. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for those who submitted questions. And I look forward to next time. Best wishes to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Thank you. Bye.